Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Today, we are going to be going over building DataHub into your workflows and protocols. My name is Julia Sweeney. I am a member of the Edcite team, and I want to introduce my colleague, Brian McIntosh, who will be leading today's DataHub session.
Thanks, Julia. Great to be here. So I work as Edcite's Director of Product, and a new product that we are working with districts all over the country is Edcite DataHub. So today's webinar, it'll be kind of a mix of these slides and then some live demos of how this actually works. And what we're doing, a lot of this will be from a demo account, but a lot of it is using data sources that we are seeing being used by multiple customers. So some really common streams of data that we're seeing from people as far as sharing. And we'll be demoing both the admin side and then a teacher side, just so you can kind of see the experience, the customizability, that the options that you have as an administrator. But the goal, as always with Edcite things, is to make it simple for the educator who's in the classroom with 20 kids in front of them. So as a teacher, it's got to be something that I can use day to day in my classroom to help my students. So jumping in to the slides here, first we'll think about, in setting this up, how is the Data Hub shared with end users? So again, I'll be starting out on the admin side of things so we can see how that piece of this works. So I'm going to exit out of the slideshow here and swap over. So this is a demo account. This is a demo account who has DataHub admin access. So on this page, what they're able to do, and I'm just going to open up District Teachers tab so I have that handy. Let's first, if you're a DataHub admin, you'll see this drop down appear where you have DataHub Home, which is where you can go and edit either data sets, reports, or dashboards. Teacher templates, where we're going to start today. So the teacher templates page, think of templates as dashboards or views that teachers or other educators might have. This is the page where you can look at the dashboards available in your district, and you can, if you add a new dashboard, you can add it here and authorize people on your team to see it. So what we'll start with here is we'll look at just a few of the dashboards that are authorized for these teams. If we choose one that's already been set up, I'll take a look at the elementary teacher dashboard. So what I can see here, I can see the dashboard name, and this is the name that it would be on the DataHub side. I'm able to, and the Edcite team will help you with setting these up the first time, but it's restricted because this is a teacher dashboard. Those teachers are only going to see students who match their roster. So this goes back to what I was saying before. We want to keep it simple for teachers. We don't want to overwhelm them seeing all the students at the school or the district. They're only going to see those rosters that for the students that they teach. Now, if you use Clever, ClassLink, Canvas, any of these systems that we integrate with for rostering, the great news is that data is going to be live updated as your class is live updated. So a lot of our customers we see using Clever for those nightly syncs, and if you're doing that, teachers are going to see exactly the kids on their roster daily. So that'll be updated even if there are roster changes. Down here, I can add access. Now in this demo account, we don't have a huge number of teachers, but I can add access by teacher group or by teacher. Typically we'll do this by teacher group in a bigger real account for customers so that it's really easy. I open the district teachers page, but if you have teacher groups here and you want to give a new teacher access to a new dashboard, it's as simple as adding Severus Snape to that teacher group. So Groups are a great way to do this. For this demo, I've been doing it by teacher just because that can be easier to read. So I'll add Severus Snape. Yay, Severus. Slytherin gets access to this dashboard as well, I guess. So another cool thing is I mentioned that the dashboards that we see here are going to reflect that teacher's actual students and their individual data. So you as an admin, you can, when you look at a dashboard and you're customizing it, you can see all the data for the district. But the question comes up, what does the teacher see? I want to make sure this is the right view for my teacher. So we've added a functionality on this page where you can add the teacher's user ID and press test template, and we'll be able to impersonate them and see the dashboard as them. So I opened the district teachers page for this reason. I wanted to test it out as DataHub Teacher 2. So I'll paste this here, click test template. Now, this will open a new tab. And what this tab will show me is really the data for the teacher whose user ID I've selected. So in this case, it was teacher 2. So when teacher 2 comes here, they're able to see data for their students do not have very exciting names, but they can see their students' assignment data down here. They can see data by standard. They can drill down to domain, to cluster, even to individual standards. So we get this standards mastery data as well as assignment data where we can drill down to student name and see how students are doing on that assessment. This dashboard, there's lots of options for how we set dashboards up. Some teams prefer a really vertical scrolling dashboard. Others prefer to segment data. And this gets into, we were talking about some of the data sources that we see commonly. So with this demo, we'll be able to see some examples of that. So one common one that we see is Fountas and Pinnell, where teams will collect these data. Edcite Schools has a way where you can send out a rubric, even if teachers are scoring this by hand or in person listening to a student read. We basically have a feature where you can send out a spreadsheet instead of using Google Sheets or something that's insecure where people are overwriting each other. Again, teachers will only get their list of kids, so they'd see the list of kids in their class. They can enter their fluency or self-correcting data, whatever is relevant for the reading assessment or assessment that they're giving, and they can fill in all these other dimensions. So it could be a letter, like for accuracy or text level, or it could be a number, or even just a checkbox to complete something. So Fountas and Pinnell, once your teachers fill that out, you can also import it from another source if you have it in a sheet somewhere, but we can then build these reports which show different data for these 5 or so students that we have filled this out for. So I won't go into all the details of this. SVMI is another content partner that we have that does really great work with math. And this is an example of one of their tasks, which all have really nice rubrics that can be graded there. NWEA, I think many people are familiar with as a benchmark that's given throughout the year. And these data can be synced in, which I'll talk about more in a bit. We also are able to show the state test data. This is just demo data here, but we can break it down by the performance band that students are in. So all of these data that we're looking at, this is for the teacher whose user ID I entered. And it's just a great way to preview. If you're an administrator, this is a really useful way to preview and see what are my teachers gonna see when they open this dashboard. Okay, so I'll close this tab out.
And that was great, Brian, because it's also nice to then, as we're thinking about, okay, we authorize teacher 2 to see this dashboard, it flows so nicely into the thought of like, well, what dashboards, what information does teacher 2 need and why? what are they supposed to do with this? What is the Fontes and Pinnell data supposed to prompt in me as a teacher? What do I need out of the state test data? So I think it's nice to also just bring it back to that as we're talking about building this into your processes. It's like grounding all of what this can do in a strong why as you're building it.
That's thanks for sharing that. That's a really, really good point. And I think, I was mentioning this briefly that, different teams will set up a teacher dashboard a little bit differently. And my advice, just from the teams that I've seen that really take this and run with it in a powerful way, a lot of times they're linking into some existing data structure, right? So, maybe you have a standardized procedure for PLC groups to review interim data. So if we have this standard set of questions that we're asking around the data, and that's something that teachers are used to, or it could be something that you're introducing new this year and you want to give a tool where they can actually look at all those pieces of data. Just as an example, right? A lot of teams will build into that process an analysis of student subgroups. So we haven't added this in the demo yet, but we can import, IEP status, free or reduced lunch status, different subgroup information that might be useful to plug into whatever that procedure or set of steps that a team has. And a lot of times I'll recommend that we even order the tabs of this in the same way that we're asking teachers to go through and review the data. So, maybe you're starting with, these are our class assessments, but for some context on that, this baseball championship task has a lot of reading, right? We can see that it's asking students a question here. So maybe the Fountas and Pinnell scores is a useful next tab in order for us to understand, hey, data student 9, weird name, but he really struggled with this assessment, and maybe that Fountas and Pinnell information about his lack of fluency could be a factor here. So just an example, but I really like your question because it aligns to, bringing into these existing processes that you may already be doing in different ways with different assessments. The DataHub's a great tool to link up with that because you're bringing all these data sources together, and you can order that in the same way that you're having these existing conversations in your district. So thanks for asking that, Julia. Great. So one other, just before I move away from this page, like we talked about, I think we were looking at this elementary teacher dashboard, and we looked at an example teacher. The DataHub is available for all the educators in your district. So it's not just teacher dashboards. We also offer school and district level dashboards as well. So I just wanted to highlight this and how it works. So we are able, if someone's a principal, to say, only show this principal. It's no longer the rosters, it's the kids at their school. So we can say, show me students who match the school ID of this principal. And that's what principal one's going to see. We also offer, I'll just highlight this here real quick, this authorized schools option. So this is very popular with a lot of customers. What this does is it plugs into our roster management from Edcite Schools, where you can give an admin access to one school, like a principal, or maybe 3 schools if they're a coach, or maybe the whole district if they're a superintendent. So this is a setting that we can enable for you, and it'll just make sure that whoever is coming to the dashboard, it's a similar dashboard for everybody, but they are only seeing the data that they should have access to. So I think that's a cool thing to highlight, because we want to expand the conversation from just, teachers should be having these conversations in their PLC groups. School leaders should be having these conversations when they're meeting with district leaders. So we want to supply to each stakeholder the right view so that they can make those decisions and those conversations. Great. So just kind of reviewing where we're at with this presentation, we talked about the user permissions and authorizing people with the tiles. We looked a bit at the dashboard and some of the reports in there. Great. So just, closing the loop on, what is this? We looked a bit at what it looks like for a teacher, saw how we can authorize school and district admins. So if I'm an admin in the DataHub, I'll see this DataHub tab and I can click DataHub Home. Now, just in the interest of this being nice and quick, I'm going to cut over to that. So this is what you would see as an admin on your admin home. You'll come to what's called an Explorer view, which has all of the data and all of the tables, all of the reports and all the dashboards, data, reports, and dashboards that your team has access to. So this is useful to see. I did a previous webinar on how you can upload data to the DataHub. So, you can loop back and check that one out if your question is how to add more data. Really what we'll be talking about here with this is just some of the things that you can do with data that's loaded in. So I have here some state test data, some NWEA data that is similar to the data that we're seeing, loaded in and that customers are getting. So let's just dive into that. So this is all linked to our fake demo accounts that we have, DataHub Student 11, etc. But what we can do here, we have a lot of options. So I'll talk about a few things. So one is being able to, add a special formula or an alert and say that if a student is at risk based on, some dimension here. So I could be saying, and this is, totally arbitrary, I'm not going to actually pick a realistic number here. But let's say we're looking at math scaled scores as a district and we want to get to 90% proficient by the next 10 years. So let's think about that. Proficient, kind of an old term. Some states have moved towards this model of meeting, not meeting, exceeding, etc. So first we want to think about what that means. So we can measure, is a student proficient or at risk? So you need to know a little bit about the data, and typically customers are pretty familiar with this, but in this case, there's not meeting, partially meeting, meeting, and exceeding. So in this example, meeting and exceeding are treated as proficient. So what I can do with this table is I can add a formula column. I already added one for adding the ELA scaled score and math scaled score. That's kind of a weird fake data point. But what I want to do here is proficient or not. I'll just call it proficiency. And what I want to do is I want to take the math perf2 column. And what I want to say is if math perf2 equals exceeding, then I want to return proficient. So I can do this, save, equal exceeding proficient. I need a non-proficient option. Otherwise, they are at risk. So that's kind of an artificial, I don't know if at risk is the perfect terminology to use there, but what this will do is it'll add a column out here. So I now have this additional column that I could build a chart around. Now, this is still missing some things, right? I need to make sure I go there and I add in the other case of, if it is basically the same thing, but we also want to capture what if they're meeting. So if it equals meeting, good, I'll close this out. Sorry for doing this live, but I want to make sure that we actually have an accurate formula. Save. Excellent. So we'll go back. Once that's saved, right, we're going to get, where is my exceeding? Oh, I made a mistake. I was looking at mperf2 when I should have been looking at mperf text. Perfect demo. I can show how easy it is to fix these things. So I'll go in.
You were testing us.
That's right. You guys passed so far. Throw in mperf text. Just change this one. That would be, that was very sad data for a minute where we had no one that was proficient. So now the students who are meeting or exceeding are proficient, and we can build charts off this. So we'll talk in a future one more about the chart building and what we can do there. But I want to make sure you guys could see. So you could also do this based off the scaled score too. So you could use cutoffs for the scaled score to output a risk score. That's a lot of times what we see that correlates then and can be used for as a filter or as something that we're displaying in charts. Good. So let me pull this back up and make sure we're going through all the topics I had on my list. Filtering for intervention groups, we talked about this a bit, but once I have this column here, I can go into a dashboard like the class view elementary teacher. I can do edit design, and I can add as a filter that proficiency. So it's very easy for me to then, and this is now something that teachers would have access to. So if I want to see just my at-risk kiddos, all of a sudden I've got this. Now, it doesn't filter the ELA because I didn't add it based on ELA, right? So it's only for the math right now. So that's a cool example and kind of similar to what some of our customers are doing. They have a lot more involved formulas where they might be looking at multiple factors to determine a risk factor. But that's just a quick demo of some of what they're doing with that. The last piece that is worth highlighting, you may have seen it briefly when I was demoing the templates here, but you are able to embed forms into a dashboard. This is a dashboard, and you're able to embed Google Forms. We've also seen Teams Forms work here, and that will allow people, when they're not in an incognito window like me, their Google name will show up, and they'll be able to fill out the form. So this links back to what we were talking about with PLC groups, and if you have a data protocol that you're asking people to complete, you can even embed that within your dashboard that teachers are looking at all the relevant data in, so they're able to make those conclusions, write those recommendations, whatever they need to do, and then it's recorded in this Google form. Good. So I think that covers most of the topics. I'll pause there. We have about 3 minutes left. So I wanted to see if any questions came up or things that would be useful to see. Just feel free to put it in the chat or shout it out.
So I'm not seeing any questions yet, but I think, a nice wrap up is we've got a last slide that just has like three points of just,
sure,
one, if we're building DataHub into our workflows, it's like, what's the first step? It's establish your vision. Who needs to see what and what do I want them to do with it? Then is the time that we backwards plan. It's like, okay, well, to get there, what what data do I need to show them? I build that report. I build it as a dashboard. And then once I have that, I authorize the right dashboards for the right people. So if I start with a strong vision and know how to do steps 2 and 3, that's ultimately the keys to building DataHub into your workflows and data protocols.
Great. Yeah, I think this is a really good summary at a high level of how you're thinking about using it. And another great resource, right? We're talking to people all over the country that are implementing this, and it may not be exactly what you saw today. Maybe your school or district does things a little bit differently. Something that we really emphasize with this is it's a partnership with our customers, and we're helping them get to something they may not have had before, which is all their data in the right place, and not just for district administrators, right? These dashboards are available to every educator that you want to give them to. So it's exciting to think about what the possibilities are, as far as every PLC group could have all these data at their fingertips. So what are the conversations that we want to be having to help students?